What if the version of you that you keep hiding is the only version that can actually change your life? Not the polite version, not the calm, agreeable, socially acceptable version, but the one you've been told to suppress. The one that feels too emotional, too intense, too ambitious, too different. Most people don't live as themselves. They live as performances, carefully edited personalities, built to avoid rejection, conflict, or judgment. Over time, the act becomes so convincing that we forget it's an act at all. Yet in quiet moments, something feels off. A strange emptiness, a tension you can't explain, a sense that you're living, but not really alive. Carl Jung believed this suffering comes from one thing: abandoning parts of ourselves to fit in. As children, we quickly learn which parts of us are accepted and which are not. Anger gets punished, sensitivity gets mocked, confidence gets called arrogance. So we hide those parts, but they don't disappear. They move into what Jung called the shadow, the hidden side of the psyche. And here's the problem. What we refuse to face doesn't vanish. It controls us from the background. Unexplained anger, self-sabotage, repeated toxic relationships, fear of speaking up, feeling stuck. These aren't random problems. They're signals from the parts of yourself you buried. And the more you try to be perfect, the further you drift from who you really are. Real freedom doesn't come from improving your mask. It comes from removing it. But facing your shadow is uncomfortable because it forces you to question everything you believe about yourself. Many people fear that if they accept their darker emotions, they'll become bad people. But Jung saw the opposite. A person who denies their anger becomes passive-aggressive. A person who denies ambition becomes resentful. A person who denies desire becomes numb. What you reject doesn't disappear. It leaks out in destructive ways. But when you accept these parts consciously, they become strength instead of chaos. Anger becomes boundaries. Ambition becomes direction. Desire becomes vitality. Sensitivity becomes empathy. The journey Jung described is called individuation, becoming a whole person instead of a socially approved fragment. And this process rarely feels comfortable. It often begins when life stops making sense. A breakup, burnout, anxiety, a deep feeling that something inside you needs to change. At first, things feel messy. Emotions intensify. Old memories surface. You question decisions, relationships, even your identity. But this isn't failure. It's the old version of you collapsing so something real can emerge. And real change doesn't happen just by thinking. It happens through action. It happens when you say no instead of yes. When you express an opinion instead of staying silent. When you stop apologizing for taking space. When you stop pretending to be okay. Small acts of honesty slowly reconnect you with yourself. And when this process truly starts working, you notice signs. You become less predictable. You stop laughing at things that bother you. You stop pleasing everyone around you. Some people will drift away. Others will feel drawn to you in ways they never were before. Because authenticity attracts truth and repels illusion. Another sign is emotional energy returning. The energy once spent pretending, hiding, and overthinking becomes available for creativity, connection, and purpose. You feel more alive. Not happier all the time, but real. You laugh louder. You feel deeper. You speak more honestly. Life becomes less about approval and more about meaning. And yes, you'll still struggle. Old habits return sometimes. Doubts appear again, but now you recognize them. And awareness is your choice. Jung never promised perfection. He promised wholeness. And wholeness means accepting that you are both strong and vulnerable, confident and insecure, light and shadow. So if lately you feel less comfortable but more honest, less agreeable but more alive, less fake but more real, you're not losing yourself. You're finally meeting yourself. And the person you were afraid to become might be the person who finally sets you free. The only question left is, are you ready to stop performing and start living?